Welcome to Still Serving, the VFW podcast, the official podcast of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And now, from the VFW Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., here's your host, Rob Couture.
And welcome to Still Serving. I'm your host, Rob Couture. Let's start off with roll call. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. Let's start going over to my left, your right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tammy Barlet. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for Student Veterans of America and a VFW member of Pennsylvania.
Woo woo. All right. And who's next to you? Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Ross. I was a VFW SVA Fellow for the 10th cohort and a lifetime VFW member, and I was part of the SVA chapter at Cornell University.
Wonderful. Cornell. Wow. Okay. If you watch The Office, there's a lot of Cornell references there. All right. And finally, at the end, sitting in the seat of our executive director, filling in as executive director for today.
I'm not filling in.
Yes, you are. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
No pressure. I'm Kristina Keenan. I'm VFW's legislative director, part of the National Legislative Service at the VFW here in the Washington office.
And finally, going over to Rhode Island, our friend and co-host of the podcast, Brittany Dymond Murray.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you, and I'm glad to be back. That was quite the hiatus with the convention, last week. So I'm psyched to be back and have you in the studio with us. Tammy and Jennifer, awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. We're really excited about this chat today.
Totally excited. Actually, this is the first time that Brittany and I have been able to focus in on one of our partner organizations. Mm-hmm. So pretty cool that we get to devote this time. And, how fitting is it, right? As kids are going back to school, that we talk about student veterans of America. So before we go any further, I'm going to throw it back over to Kristina, who has what's going on for our run a show and our agenda and
so
go.
Can see that?
Yeah.
There we go. So we just did some intros of our special guests. We're going to dive a little deeper on the Student Veterans of America and kind of what they do, talking about our partnership with SVA and VFW, and then get into some details about our Legislative Fellowship. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the legislative issues that we both are working on together, that we sort of both are championing. And then we'll do a little bit of a convention preview. We'll do a big overview in the next podcast on convention. And then go to the order, just like a normal meeting.
Just like a normal meeting. Yeah. And with all five of us here, we do indeed have a quorum. So, so let's go ahead and start this thing off. You all are very well educated. I made an attempt many years ago, back in the late 1900s. I'm bringing Brittany. Really? I went off to college. I was not in the military at the time, long before I joined. And, I didn't have the self-discipline. So when I see my comrades who have bachelor's and master's, looking at you, Brittany, I'm just, the amount of dedication you guys had to be able to go on with your education, taking full advantage of the benefits that you have as a veteran that you earned. I just got to say, hats off to you. Hats off to each one of you, because I think it's pretty phenomenal that we get to do this. And you know what? This is the legacy of the VFW, because we've fought hard long time ago for this thing that was called the GI Bill. And when veterans were coming back from World War II. And if it wasn't for that, many people in this country wouldn't be where they are today. Our country wouldn't be where it is today. So there's my rah-rah jingoistic lead in for all this. And I'm just kind of going to go around. Let's just start off with SVA. So Tammy, you actually used to work here in the legislative team.
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did. Absolutely.
Yes, she did. Good
friend of ours, and worked on a lot of legislation that was here. And but that's working for the VFW is not how you got started. You got started as a student veteran. Mm-hmm. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So I waited 10 years after I transitioned to go back to school. While pursuing my undergrad at Temple University, I saw an SVA chapter there. And it took me a year to really get involved. But once I did, that peer support, that connection was almost immediate.
and I really felt home. And then it was just like a lead into the organization's programmings at large. The regional summit here in DC that summer where I met my best friend, and to the national convention that following year where it really was a pivotal moment for me. I had all plans on becoming an epidemiologist, went there and I was inspired by many of the advocates that were there. Ryan Gallucci was there that year, and I decided to take a pivot into veteran advocacy. And so SVA really helped me propel that going forward. I did a fellowship with them that summer, right around the Forever GI Bill. So got to see that being voted into law and then implemented thereafter. And then kind of like moved my master's degree down here to George Washington University, where there's an active SVA chapter. So again, continuing that camaraderie while I'm navigating DC.
Oh, that's amazing. Tell us a little bit about the difference between being in an SVA chapter and being in a VFW post. Are they the same? Are they very different? What can you tell us about it?
They're a little different. There's really no outside income coming from a canteen.
Okay.
Good point. That's a good point.
That is true. But what you'll go you'll see a lounge. It's very homey. So you'll see a lounge, sometimes lockers, sometimes a kitchen where there'll be a nice coffee pot, coffee maker, beverages available, big screen TV to do some gaming. And off in the side, there'll be like a little computer lab where you'll have some quiet area, be able to use the printer for free and things like that. A way to navigate your own college experience outside of being in a very noisy library on campus.
So that's kind of like having a common area in the military.
A refuge.
Right? A refuge, if you will. Like having a day room, having your microwave and all that sort of thing. Now, are these things, are they common in every SVA chapter?
So no, not every SVA chapter has the opportunity to have a physical place with those type of amenities. We do see it with like our larger state schools, and those have had SVA chapters for many years. Sometimes, when our chapter started at Temple, we did a monthly meeting at a classroom, and that's where we were until we got the SVA Home Depot grant, where we actually had money, and the school saw the commitment from the SVA chapter, and they helped find a space for us, and we were able to outfit it with some of that grant money.
So we've had a few people that worked here at the VFW Washington office, Catherine Castle, who's been associated with SVA, and some other folks who have come in, like it is an internship, right, with the fellowship, sort of, but they've come in and they've gone on to do great things. For those veterans that are out there that are students right now, what would you say to them to get them to go check it out? I mean, you told your story, but what would you tell them about where SVA is now and going into the future that might be drawn to them?
Yeah. So if your campus does not have an SVA chapter, look to start one. Connect with us. Get together with our chapter outreach coaches. They can help you along the lines of filling out your constitution, how to become a school club, and the specific things we have along the way that are requirements for a chapter. But if you do have a chapter on campus, it did take me a little over a year and a half to navigate to that SVA chapter. But once I did, I saw other veterans like myself, other coasties, other women veterans, other veterans could be of color or of your specific degree that you're studying. So you find that commonality that you all have.
And also you find people that you maybe were in the same service, like you said, fellow coasties. That's kind of cool, actually. But like a VFW post, you're getting to meet all different types of veterans, younger, older, those fresh out, those that have been out for a long time. It's pretty cool. I like that. I think that it's like an alternative to the sorority, fraternity, fraternal organizations withdrawn and college campuses that you have to rush for and all these other things that I don't know, maybe I've seen Animal House too many times. So what do you think, Kristina?
I'm just curious, how many SVA chapters are there right now?
So we have over 1,600 chapters nationwide and a handful overseas, because you can use your GI Bill overseas, and we do have some schools that do have SVA chapters. We also have an online presence because many students, I did have my master's degree online, so many students find the capabilities and time-wise fits their schedule to do an online program. And when I say over 1,600, that's just not specifically student veterans who are using GI Bill or other VA education benefits. That's dependents, survivors, caregivers, and allies that are all involved on our chapters.
I learned something new. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Me either.
Well, that's pretty cool. So if Rob goes back to, I don't know, UMGC, I can be part of the SVA chapter online, virtual chapter.
Yes.
Wow. Look at that, Brittany. We're not the only ones doing virtual stuff here.
Don't we have
I
a
love it,
VFW
though.
past chief that was part of an SVA chapter, Brian Duffy?
Yes.
Did he? Was he really?
Because he went back to school, and I think he joined a SVA chapter.
He did. And
Yeah.
he's
I
finishing,
love
he's only a
that.
handful of classes away from his degree.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Brittany, what do you have on your mind to talk to our good friend Tammy about?
So I'm curious. So I like the comparison of like VFW to SVA, and in the sense that we have like lower chapter, there are smaller units, I guess, within SVA and VFW. So that being the post and the individual chapters of SVA. So, but then we have another part of the organization. So, us, the VFW, being part of the national staff, our mission's a little bit different than what's happening at the post level. And Tammy, as the VP of Government Affairs, how is it that you and the national level of SVA support SVA chapters?
Well, Brittany, that's a very good question. Like the VFW, you all have resolutions that help support your support on specific pieces of legislation. At SVA, we do have our policy priorities that do change slightly year after year as legislation is being passed, as we are becoming aware of new issues and concerns. And those just come from conversations we have throughout the year. One of them is specifically our policy think tank at our national convention. That opportunity for individuals to get together, those attendees, to talk about best practices and what barriers they're still facing. And then our Washington week, along with regional summits and just things that come in through the portal and those conversations we have.
No, that's seems like you should all get together 1 year or two, and you do. It's called NatCon. We'll get to that.
It's called NatCon. We will.
And it's in Orlando, which is like, is it in Orlando this year?
No, we're back.
Oh, don't.
More.
No, okay. All right. I was gonna say don't give it away, but okay. Yeah, I have missed my opportunity to go to Orlando for that. When you went to Orlando, do you guys go do Disneyland, Disney World trips and that sort of thing?
I've seen others do that, but I just never had the chance to be able to double back.
Because you're busy and you're on staff.
Yeah.
Right. It's so busy.
Tammy
Well, there's
doesn't
always
stop.
great things. Do you get a chance to go travel around to all the different SVA chapters that are out there?
So I don't exactly. I try to intermingle them with the travel that I do. I just came back from a regional summit in Kansas City with the VFW, and we got the opportunity to see headquarters and pretty much, I think, all the floors. I was up on the floor with Dan West, and he and I were chatting with each of the groups. So unfortunately, I did not get a chance to go through the museum again. Been in that building twice now.
The museum there.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, when you used to be on staff here, we went to the World War I museum because we got stuck. Remember, we couldn't
did get
fly
stuck.
out. Anyway, yeah, that was fun. That was
Certain airline.
Yeah, a certain airline. And it was good for another person on our party because he would have missed his flight, if you remember
That's
that.
true.
Yeah. So
I
anyway.
do go to other conferences. SVA is very involved with WAVES, FAVES, and AVICO. So those are the school certifying official conferences they have throughout the summer. So when we do step into those conferences, we have the opportunity to connect with the local campuses. So WAVES was in Reno this year, so we got to go to the University of Nevada, Reno campus, where they had already planned many of the local veteran advisors to be there, along with two of the community campuses too.
Really?
So it was great. So having that overall conversation right there in their vet center on campus.
So not only those within academia, those different conferences, but you're going to the Military Influencers Conference and you're going to MCON. And I'm sure, do you have a presence at AUSA?
Not yet, but we're working on it.
Okay, good. Yeah, put that out there. A little hint for those that listen in and might be members of AUSA. Or maybe, Fleet Reserve or whatever other ones that they might have out there. Now, you brought up students that are in Europe. And I love taking this time out to talk to Kristina about your
call.
time. Now, when you were in Europe, because you went to school, right?
I did.
So talk to us about a little, if we could do a little like bookmark and talk about your story of going to school yet again, because I think it's apropos.
Yeah, it kind of is apropos. Yeah, I studied. I finished my master's.
By the way, that was French.
It is.
Okay, leads into that, right?
That, yeah.
And Kristina speaks French.
So yeah, I finished my bachelor's degree at the American University of Paris.
Yeah.
And there were a handful of veterans, GWAT veterans, that were attending there. But shortly after I graduated, I became part of the staff. So I worked in the alumni and fundraising and development office for quite a long time, almost 10 years. And so some of the newer master's students got together and created an SVA chapter in around 2008, 2009. And since they knew me and they knew I was a veteran, I was able to be a staff advisor for this newly created SVA chapter. And a very good friend of mine, Professor Stephen Ekovich, not World War II. He would hate me for that. Vietnam veteran, who was on the faculty, also was a staff advisor. And so it was just an amazing group of people. They did a lot to promote and create like a student scholarship for veterans at the university, kind of first ever. And then we kind of actively promoted GI Bill benefits, which the school was accepting, to some of the military installations like in Germany. So dependents started coming to the university. So it just sort of, from that SVA chapter, those conversations, it just sort of flourished into recruiting more students and getting more beneficiaries in, and cross integration with the VFW post there. So the VFW post would invite student veterans to the U.S. Embassy, because they would do happy hours. This was sort of pre-COVID. So they would do happy hours at the embassy and invite the students to come. It might have been their first time ever at the U.S. Embassy in Paris. So just a lot of really cool interactions between the students and the local veteran population.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm bringing Brittany back in to transition to why we have such a tight relationship, the VFW and SVA, and that's not just because we just happen to be members.
That's true. I mean, it's a nice coincidence, I guess. But
I've tried.
No, so as students in school, as veterans, Kristina, you mentioned GWAT veterans. We learn a lot when we're going through school with, barriers to accessing benefits. You spoke about the GI Bill and using it, and, using it overseas in Europe. As students, as student veterans, we're kind of in this interesting space where we have the veteran experience, but we're also going to school. So we're kind of in a little bit of both worlds. We're not quite back in the workforce yet, but we're also using some benefits. And so we kind of see some of the challenges or barriers to, various things in, post-service veteran life. And so that brings up a really interesting opportunity that VFW and SVA have partnered on for now, I think in our 11th year, which is the VFW SVA Legislative Fellowship. So student veterans, and please, I want you to jump in. I don't want to spoil it, but can you tell us how that fellowship allows student veterans to take the knowledge that they've amassed and actually put it into action?
Who wants to tackle that?
I don't know. Sorry. So that's, I guess, open to anyone. Tammy, Kristina, and Jennifer as a previous fellow. So we would love to hear what your experience was like, but just kind of an overview of what the fellowship is and how it enables student veterans to make an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as one of the most recent graduates and participants of the VFW SVA Fellowship, for me it was extremely impactful and kind of changed the course of my journey since retirement. So I retired from the Air Force in 23 and made the decision to go back to school full time. And I, as a good as a good person does, they go back and just get an MBA because that's what one does. That's what you do. That's what you do when you don't know what you want to do. But through that process, Cornell University has such a strong SVA chapter. I got immediately connected with them, and through the networking with the other student veterans is really how I came across this program. And again, it's a testament to how much SVA does on campuses, because I would never have, had this opportunity to, just experience this fellowship, but then also get in touch and connected with the VFW. Even as a retiree, I knew what VFW was. I knew that they, supported legislation and things, but really I had the amazing opportunity to have Kristina and Joy as my mentors during the program, which every fellow is set up with either an SVA or a VFW mentor to really help walk you through your legislative priority. For our particular fellowship, we were advocating for the GI Bill, the Guard and Reserve GI Bill Parity Act. And I learned something there. I mean, I'd been in for 20 years, had no idea that service time was counted differently for our Guard and Reserve partners, who arguably have stepped up, especially since 9/11, as much as many active duty service members. So it was, I learned about policy. I learned about different differences between Guard and Reserve. I learned things that, after 20 years you think you would know, but, still every day learning something new. But again, we were assigned an amazing policy project. We had amazing mentors. We were able to really engage with the national leadership at SVA and VFW. And I walked away with a love of policy, which then actually kind of shifted my career in different ways, very similar to how Tammy's career changed through her interaction with her SVA chapter. So I think that's the biggest thing, for especially those veterans who aren't quite sure where they want to go, but want to find something that's very mission driven, something that helps them feel like they're giving back to not only their veteran community, but student veterans. I think it was just a wonderful program that really checked a lot of boxes for me for things that I was looking for after retirement.
Okay, really cool. I think there's an opportunity there, especially when you come into DC, right? You came in for the Washington conference?
I did.
Yeah, and so you get to, interact with legislators that are there. That's part of what it is being a fellow. You get to come in. But, maybe I got a little ahead of it. Tammy, could you kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of what this fellowship is? Start date, end date, selection process, all that sort of thing.
Sure. So application processes start the beginning of August. I've got my little cheat sheet here, and the deadline is September 12th. So once applications come in for that, then the VFW and SVA have a rubric that we look at the 3 to 5 page essay where we want student veterans to discuss about the importance of veteran advocacy, their level of experience, because not everyone's coming in with a degree of policy, and the networks they have back in their communities and how they can leverage that network. Jennifer had mentioned the Guard Reserve Parity Act. So in the beginning portion, once those student veterans are selected, then they go through their community action plan. And that community action plan, again, leverages their knowledge of their network back in their community. So they're doing advocacy work back in their community on a piece of legislation that both SVA and VFW are very passionate about. And when I say community action plan, that can be different for many people. Extroverts or introverts. They can do panels back at the VFW post or on campus. We've seen student veterans do infographics and really cool one-pagers to where connections aren't their thing, but they're great graphic artists. And so that community action plan leads into SVA's national conference, or NatCon, if you will, where we have those student veterans come and they get to see how this all works on the SVA end of things. They get to meet each other. They come to our Hill Town Hall session, our VSO MSO panel, our policy think tank session. And then in the next 2 months before our Washington week and VFW's legislative conference in the spring, they're working on taking that community action plan that they did now narrowing it down into like a one-pager and an elevator pitch, because they're preparing to come here to DC and be on the Hill with their VFW comrades and speak the message.
Oh, very good. Very good. What do you have to add, Kristina, to that, since you kind of honcho the rubric, review along with SVA?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really fun program. A lot of the students are very familiar with SVA. We get a lot of applications from SVA chapter leaders, presidents, members, but it has been a really good opportunity for the students to also get to know the VFW, because a lot of that advocacy, sometimes they'll come to us and say, well, who can I give a presentation to? Who can I talk about this legislation with? And we're like, well, we'll connect you with your department, your VFW department, district, and post in your local area. And then automatically they have an audience of veterans where they can go and explain the piece of legislation and create those bonds with other fellow VFW members. And for some, it's the first time really being introduced to the VFW at all these different levels. And so it kind of builds through the academic year. And when they come to Washington, D.C., now we're setting them to go out with their department delegations. So the department commanders and legislative committee members, and then they get a minute, or more with their members of Congress to make that pitch and to try to get support for this piece of legislation. So they get to see, really how it all works within our two organizations, but then on the Hill, like really how we make change as advocates.
It's pretty cool to think, especially with the fact that we have VFW members that are members of Congress, both in the House and the Senate. So it's neat to see that interaction when you're able to catch that glimpse of someone who's just like maybe just starting as a veteran fellow in the program, and then to interact with somebody who, if that's their course, what they want to do with life, they're on the other end of that. So, Brittany, you had a question that you were going to ask.
I do. So I have a question, but I also just wanted to make one statement. Something you just said, Tammy, that stuck with me was there's a whole variety of individuals who apply to this fellowship. They could be introverts, extroverts, et cetera. And I know those are the two dominant personalities. And I would consider myself an introvert. And I really like that you mentioned people are paired with mentors to figure out how each individual fellow can best craft their message in a way that's comfortable for them, that leverages their skills and abilities and personality. So I really love that, because I myself wouldn't consider, like before now, if I knew what I know now, like 4 or 5 years ago, I like probably wouldn't consider myself a candidate to apply. I would have been like, no, I don't have the personality for that. But to your point, I really love that there's a path to advocacy for everyone, if that's something that that people are interested in. And it's all about finding the right people and mentors to help you find the path that is right for you to tell your story, or to craft that elevator pitch in a way that resonates with people who need to hear it. And so that was something really interesting, and I appreciate you mentioning that, Tammy. But on a similar note, when I was an undergrad, I was studying business operations, and my school didn't have an SVA chapter. We had a veteran service office, but we didn't have an SVA chapter, so I didn't know about the fellowship. But had I known about it, I don't know that I would have applied, because I would have been like, well, gee, I'm like a business major. Like, do I have any business applying to this legislative fellowship? So I'm curious, does it matter what student veterans are studying? Does that have any role in the application and the selection process at all? Does it matter?
No. So degree of study does not have any influence on the application process. Right. I myself am a public health professional by education, I should say. And given that, I'm kind of like a subject matter expert when it comes to way programs are run, way grants are processed. And once upon a time, I was a fellow in 2019. And at that time, the program was to really help booster those new ideas. Now, even though my concept of dental care as preventative care, you would think was not a new idea, it's a new idea. There is still not 100% eligibility across the board. although DILAC did help a little bit that with cardiovascular disease.
Oh, I do remember that.
My research was like done in cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's. So that was really cool. But it's not just what they're studying. It's really the passion and the drive they have going forward. I think that's, for me, when I do the application, even though I have the rubric there, that's what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for someone that has that passion, because the passion leads to commitment, right? And it's not a 20-hour fellowship, but you're at least going to put 10 hours in it a week, especially in your community action plan portion of it, and trying to meet with your mentors, because our cohort is small enough to where we have that one-on-one mentorship, or maybe one-on-two mentorship. Yeah. So you have a very unique opportunity. It's not like you're 3 fellows to 1 mentor. You really have that one-on-one time. And so, to ensure that you have that time and space put forward into the program as an application applier, that you know what's going to be asked of you going forward.
I am going to kind of like throw this out there to the whole group here. And it's not just people that are involved with the fellowship, although I want to hear that perspective too. But here you are, someone that is, you've moved on out of the military, you're in college. If I would say if you don't have a family, then that's one less distraction. Distraction? No, I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but you
Maybe
have one
variable.
less thing that you have to commitment. Thank you. One more commitment that you, one less commitment rather that you don't have to worry about. But now you have, if you want to be like someone a member in good order in the VFW, you're going to post meetings, you're contributing there. You're going to school, finals, papers, all these different things, SVA chapter, and then a fellowship. How do you manage all that? I'm going to start with you, Tammy, and I'm going to go around to Jennifer, and then I'm going to have you all chime in too, Brittany and Kristina. So go ahead, Tammy.
Harmonizing.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
what do you mean by that?
So I used to be all about, work hard, play hard, and kind of like, well, then I'm burning the candle at both ends, and it's soon going to be a puff of smoke, right? But definitely harmonizing. I got my younger sister involved in a temple. She used to come down and visit me every so often. So she was experiencing the school at the same time I was doing. Like I mentioned, our SVA chapters are open to everyone. So we actually have veterans and other family members in the chapter with them, because you may have a dependent who's using another benefit as their parents are going through school themselves. So that's really cool to see that happening and intermingling. So that's my word, harmonizing. Harmonizing.
Jennifer.
I love it.
I would say, phoning a friend. I definitely relied on my network, especially when it came to our project. I created a website and then did a survey of Guard members to really kind of get some factual data on, how the non-parity was affecting their educational journey. And I got a shout out to Eric Evans of Friendly Forces, because he was able to get my survey in front of a large Guard and Reserve audience. And we were able to actually get almost 400 survey responses, based on his support. And honestly, had I had to do all that heavy lifting by myself, it wouldn't have been as impactful. And then again, the experience that I had with my VFW mentors, and then working with my VFW legislative POC, Tom Levitt, post 1503.
Nice.
I didn't feel like I had to do everything. I could reach out, get support when I needed to. And if I was feeling overwhelmed, there was somebody who could be like, hey, what do you need? And so that was, just phoning a friend and, again, relying on your network to help you really make that impact.
Now, I will say this, not to say it was any easier, but you were a retiree when you went off to college, right?
Yes.
So that financial portion, it was a little bit better. Not to say, we get paid a ton of money. It's not like we had 4 stars when we retired or anything, right? But did that make, was that one less thing you had to worry about? Or did you have to, because you were getting the GI Bill, and you probably got, the stipend that came along with that. So would you say that you had a little bit easier? Try not to minimize it, but a little bit easier than other student veterans?
I would say from a resourcing standpoint, it's just different. I don't know if it's easier or any more or less difficult, but I would say resourcing is less of a barrier or something that you have to think of, when deciding, where you're going to put your time. I would say at the biggest benefit of being a retiree was just, having that freedom to kind of career search and explore, because I knew I was going to do a pivot. I wasn't quite sure where yet, hence the MBA. But again, relying on programs like this really helped me figure out and narrow down what my next, second career journey was going to be. And so from a retiree standpoint, I think I was ready for a career pivot. But somebody who maybe is just getting out, maybe this is just, again, that maybe their opportunity to search before, income creep comes in the way too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I loved the program, and I would recommend anybody going back to school, even if it's just to give yourself that barrier between transitioning from the service and maybe not wasting years doing something that you aren't quite passionate about, but it pays the bills.
Yeah.
I think education and programs like this are ways to really, truly figure out who you are when the uniform comes off.
Ooh, love that soundbite. That was really good. Thanks, Jennifer, for that. It was a little bit different for you, Kristina. I mean, here you are in another country, and I'm sure money wasn't flowing in either when you were going. And then on top of that, you have a language issue. But a lot of Americans go into the school that you went to, or what?
Oh yeah, the school that I went to in France, it was about 40% Americans. Very international school, so about 40% Americans, maybe 20% French, and then people from all around the world. So very, very international experience. But there was a very small number of veterans, and it grew after I had graduated. Actually, just as people were getting out of the military post Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. So when I was going to school, I really didn't have a veteran community, I have to say, and so it was a private school where just very few people had the experience of serving.
Yeah.
So I would have really liked to have been part of that community. I didn't really even get to know that there was a VFW community until well after I had gotten out of the military. So I think all of those connections would have really helped my transition, because I really just tried to kind of forget the military, get back into civilian life, and kind of struggled for several years trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
But I did a couple of internships, and I will say that those are really great ways to figure out what you want to do. Right. Similar to our fellowship. They're just incredible experiences.
Yeah, excellent. And so Brittany, for you, when you got out, so you were in the Northwest, correct?
I was I was just outside of Seattle. I separated.
Talk a little bit about if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your transition from the military to becoming a full-time student, and then where it led you in getting your master's degree as well.
Ooh, great question. So I'm hearing a lot of similar through lines, which I identify with. So I was medically separated, and so I went through the IDES process in Whidbey Island, Washington, in Washington State, and it's called the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. And as part of that, I was connected with my benefits. So I had a disability rating, like pretty much like as soon as I got out. So that was really fortunate that worked out that way for me. So I had income. I wasn't, like I said, I was separated, so I was not retired. Therefore, I didn't have a retirement check coming in. But I did have the benefit of disability check coming that really helped. My spouse at the time is also a disabled veteran, and so we navigated that together. We only had 2 dogs, so we didn't have children or other responsibilities that we had to tend to, which made the transition easier. But so the financial piece wasn't so much a challenge for us. It was more so trying to find my way. As an individual, trying to find my way, that was really hard for me. I think, all said, it took me about 7 years to figure out where like where I was going. It was quite the process. And so it was trial and error, and I didn't know like what degree I wanted. So I just kind of landed somewhere, and I was like, this is fine, I guess, for now. I don't love it, but I'm just trying to figure it out. And so that's kind of, I had an end goal, and I really wanted to work for Boeing. And so I was like, this is a path to Boeing. The school that I went to is called Western Washington University. They had a really good relationship with a lot of massive corporations that happen to live in Seattle. They're headquartered in Seattle, Boeing being one of them. So I went through one of the programs that is kind of like a feeder program, if you will, to Boeing. And I landed there doing industrial engineering, and that was fine for a while. But then I started really feeling like I was not in the right place. I felt really out of place, like I was not contributing in the way that really meant something. I felt like a fish out of water, like I wasn't serving anymore, and that was really difficult for me to reconcile. So after about a year at Boeing, I found a master's in public administration at the University of Washington, and I applied late. I applied very late, and to my surprise, they reviewed my application anyway, and they extended an offer of an acceptance letter. So I put in my notice at Boeing and went back to school, and I did an internship while I was in that master's program. Again, to Kristina's point, internships are valuable. They're a valuable way to figure out what you want to do and also what you don't want to do. And so that was really helpful for me to try to figure out roughly what track I wanted to be on. So then I came across the VFW. I said this before, like I really leaned hard on my VFW community when I was doing my bachelor's degree in Washington. That was the community that I leaned on. We didn't, like I said, we didn't have an SVA chapter, but we did have a VFW literally right down the hill, and they offered free student parking.
Oh, cool.
So that was a really easy way to get student veterans in the door.
Yeah.
And our post commander was also a post 9/11 veteran, and he was in the veteran service office all the time, essentially recruiting student veterans to come to the post. And so we developed a community of student veterans at the local VFW post. Even those student veterans who weren't VFW eligible, didn't matter. We all got together there, leaned on each other. A lot of us were taking the same classes, so that really helped. To Jennifer's point, like phone a friend, that really helped a lot. And then, I eventually found my way to VFW, and it was like a 7-year period where I just didn't know what I was doing, and I felt really out of place. And that was 4 years ago now.
Yeah, 4 years.
It's been 4 years.
I'm looking at the camera right now, and you're still on camera with me, Brittany. So,
yes.
Brittany said a bunch of great things there. If you're a post commander and you're near a college, free parking, huge help. Whatever you can do to help out those student veterans. I mean, that's why we have SVA chapters. But you might be able to, I don't know, adopt a SVA chapter or something like that to help contribute, whatever that might be, whether it's parking. You never know what student that's there that's trying to find their way, trying to figure things out, much like these ladies had said here around the horn. And I think I think we have a part to play as VFW members. So,
agreed.
Rob,
please.
Have two quick things. So you mentioned about reaching out to an SVA chapter.
Yeah.
So the VFW has a SVA chapter grant.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
which post commanders can apply for. They can receive $500 twice a year to doing anything with a student veteran chapter. When I mean anything, I heard they do burger burns and steak nights or a game night, tailgating. If there's a game coming up, connecting with that chapter that has that presence on campus, that, hey, this night is like a veteran football game. Invite the two groups together, do a tailgate together.
That's right.
You get $500 twice a year. And then also I just wanted to pull off of what Brittany had mentioned about transition.
Yeah.
So often at SVA, we hear that story of like, I transitioned out of service. I went on campus and just signed up for something because I had to. So about over a year ago, we launched our Career Center on our website. So it's a platform where transitioning service members, veterans, and their families can go on and help figure that out. Figure out what their next journey is. And by looking at the hobbies or what they did in the military or past certifications they might have had before they entered the military. And then it kind of like filters through. They get an opportunity to be coached one-on-one with our coaches and then figure out what school best fits for them, location-wise, degree-wise. And then on the back end, we have a vetted internship and a job board.
Wow. I tell you what, if I was in the military and or I had just gotten out and I was going to college, I think that's where I would probably need to do is surround myself with other fellow veterans, because it was pretty lonely going to college myself, straight out of high school, and not having that. So I can imagine somebody regaining their freedom, right? Like you all did, regaining your freedom from where you were as a veteran, but now you got a little bit of focus. But even still, much like those people, I mean, it's almost like when you go in the military, you're postponing what you're going to do for when you grow up, right?
Yes.
As they said, right? So it's like for some folks, they go off to college and they're just as aimless as 17-year-old Rob Couture was in Franklin Pierce College in Rindge, New Hampshire, and playing whatever in the quad, and not really knowing what I do. But that's kind of a lie, because this is exactly what I wanted to do. So I went into the Army being a broadcaster and retired, and here I am. So not saying that I shouldn't have gone to school, but I have a friend of mine that they end up, right now, a good friend of mine, we both retired, pretty close proximity. She's a professor at Syracuse now. She went and got her doctorate. So it's like in communication. So anyway, I have no excuses. So go ahead, Tammy.
I was also going to say, as veterans, we often want to do that reach back to the transition service member. And as alumni, also reach back to the campuses that you graduated from. Tell your story to them.
Yeah.
Let them know the successes you've had, and then reach back to see if there's an SVA chapter or there's a school certifying official that you can connect with to help bridge that gap and advance the network.
Very good. Very good.
It's a great suggestion,
I think it's
Tammy.
important for us, and this, because all this stuff doesn't happen without the hard-fought legislation that we try to get passed in Congress. So, Brittany, there were some things that you were going to go ahead and jump in on this topic. I'm going to throw it to you.
So this is a really great pivot point. So we spoke about, the fellowship at length and, how student veterans can engage with that. So legislation, VFW and SVA are at the forefront of advocacy in Washington, D.C. when it comes to, education benefits and even some VFW's scope is considerably larger than education, but it's an integral piece. And so would like to pivot to talking about legislation that both organizations are currently focusing on for the 119th Congress. So Kristina or Tammy, if either of you want to jump in, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Jennifer mentioned the Guard and Reserve GI Bill Parity Act, which was sort of the focus for our fellowship last fall. So we've worked a lot on that, and that's focusing on Guard and Reserves members earning their GI Bill benefits at the same rate. So if they're a day in uniform counts towards your GI Bill. And that's a lot of that is because Guard and Reserves are doing short deployments. They're doing border security. They've helped with the COVID-19 pandemic, all kinds of natural disasters and stuff domestically, which wouldn't traditionally sort of count as that active duty service time. So we want to make sure that every day that you put on the uniform, you're earning towards your education benefits. Another issue, really looking at education benefits and expanding some of those, modernizing them, particularly as we know a lot of student veterans are taking some in-person classes and some online classes. I don't know, Tammy, if you want to expand a little bit on that, just how we want to try to modernize how their benefits are administered.
Yeah, so if you're a student veteran and or a dependent using GI Bill benefits and you choose to take all your classes online for this semester. And again, that's a choice that fits best with your schedule, your program, your family, and other responsibilities you have. But by doing so, your monthly housing allowance drops significantly.
Yes.
Right now, if you're a full-time online student, it's $1,100 a month.
It's like cut in half, isn't it?
Where if you were just taking one class online, you would be somewhere around $3,000, $3,500 a month.
Wow.
You all still have the same bills to pay, right? We all still have mortgage, rent, and childcare. So one of our big pushes, and VFW has been very supportive also, is online monthly housing allowance parity, bringing it up to at least the national average, which is $2,200 a month.
Right.
So that $1,000 can mean so much to a veteran and their families.
Absolutely. And because I think we both recognize that veterans are often non-traditional students. Some have left the military with disabilities, dependents, spouses. So their life situation may be different. They may be trying to work at the same time. And so we want to make sure that veterans who are in school have that housing stability. Because if it drops suddenly, they may need to leave their program.
Right.
So we want to ensure that student veterans are successful, they complete their programs, and they get to their employment goals and have that stability. So, we've worked really closely on that issue. Also, the book stipend. The book stipend that you get with your education benefits has not been raised at all. I don't know.
2008, 2010, somewhere around there.
Goodness.
Yeah, quite a while. And books have increased in price significantly.
Wow.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but both of those issues were things that were brought up during the policy think tank at NatCon, correct?
Yeah. So the online monthly housing allowance came from one of our student veteran of the year a few years ago. And at that time, he was just talking about the summer session. Right. He was taking brick and mortar fall and spring, and the school was forcing him online during the summer. And he saw that drop. And then, the book stipend was a conversation that came out of the policy think tank a few years ago. We had done a survey in preparation for a hearing not too long ago talking about the book stipend, and we were hearing from students that it is well over, right now, the bill proposal is $1,400 with codification of inflation, but we were hearing like 16, 18 was like the average, let alone if you were pursuing a STEM degree or a JD, like your books are going to be significantly more than that.
Super expensive. I can also imagine those that are in like the engineering fields. There's a lot of labs that are outside of what the normal, credit hours are that probably cost a ton of money. I mean, even the community college, when, my kids had checked it out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just a lab and you need this? Yeah. But hey, that's a great thing about the Forever GI Bill is I was able to turn that over. Hey, you got a stipend, you're living at home, you can pay for that. But anyway, okay, so we're talking about legislation. Is there any other legislation that probably we need to talk about here?
I mean, there's lots of legislation, but there are also major issues that we've discussed a lot between SVA and VFW. The VRD program needs improvements, and that's specifically job retraining and education for disabled veterans. And we know, I don't know, Jennifer, if you did VRNE or did somebody do it? No.
I tried.
I did VRNE.
I did VRNE.
And
I did too.
VRNE. Yeah, so we've heard from a lot of VFW members and student veterans of like administrative issues and some of the issues getting to know their counselors and getting in touch with them, just how they get their expenses reimbursed. So some of the really nitty-gritty parts of the program. We've had a lot of feedback from veterans, and Tammy and I both wrote testimony for a December hearing this past year on VRD. So that's like another big issue area I think that we're both aligned on.
Yeah. And with that hearing, we all had well enough advanced time to survey our members and hear from them what their issues are. And many of them were saying like they would recommend VRNE to another veteran, although biggest challenge was communication between them and their advisor.
Which is critical because you have to maintain very frequent contact with your advisor going through that program. So, and they're tapped out. Like the the ratio is too high. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are too many student veterans to each VR&E counselor or advisor, and so that makes their job really challenging. Spending the appropriate amount of time with each veteran that they're charged with assisting through the program. So that was agreed. That was a challenge for me as well, but my counselor did the best he could.
Yeah. I have to ask you, Jennifer, because Cornell's an Ivy League school. So, yes. How did you find, and this is just completely random, we didn't plan for this. How well received were you on campus?
Yeah, no, it was, so I actually went with an executive MBA program, one, because I, non-traditional student, but I also really didn't want to be in a room with a bunch of 20-somethings. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was just a different experience that I wanted to have. And it was funny because I was actually the first veteran that many of my classmates had ever met. And definitely never even pictured like a woman veteran. So that experience was really amazing because I got to tell them about what it was to be a service member, what I did as a women veteran and then as a retiree, and so it was a really awesome experience to kind of be that ambassador. And then Cornell just has. I took most of my classes in their tech campus in New York City, but the campus up in Ithaca actually has one of the most amazing SVA chapters. They actually have a house dedicated to veterans who are deciding to live, in a dorm style, frat house style apartment living.
Wow!
But it was every time I went up to Ithaca, we would visit the veteran house, and they just had such an amazing community. And it was just one of those, it was just a check mark on a mile-long list of check marks of why I chose Cornell. But the military history of the school, the reception that I got from the admission process, and then just the reception that I got from my classmates who were just interested in learning about what it was like to be a veteran in the military. So it was I had a very positive experience in that regard.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. When you talk about an SVA house, it makes me think that they're in like double secret probation. If you have to have a top secret to get in there. But hey, so that's pretty cool. I would say that for a lot of folks, especially saying that you were teaching them what a veteran is, first veteran they might have met. The first veteran I met on my college campus, I remember I went to go visit him in his dorm room, and when I went in there, and he was an older guy, like he maybe served in the early 80s, and here we are 10 years later in 1992 when I'm going to college, and I know I'm showing my age, but I went into his room, all blacked out curtains, camo netting all over the place. It was like straight out of Apocalypse Now. It was pretty crazy. And I was like, okay, this is military. And he would have he would look off into the distance, 1,000-yard stare when we'd talk. And
maybe not the best.
No, maybe that wasn't the best introduction to the veteran community. That was a student veteran. But anyway, just one off, I guess, maybe. So I think that's great. So Tammy, before we go any further, where can people find out about SVA, the fellowship, and all that? Just to recap that in a nice tight package, if you could.
Yeah, so just easy to Google studentveteransofamerica.org. You'll find all that information on there. You'll find about NACON, our Leadership Institute that's right around the corner, regional summits, SVA, VFW, Legislative Fellowship. Really into the nitty-gritty about that, like what does eligibility look for? You have to be a student in the fall and the spring semester. You have to be VFW member or VFW eligible. Okay. Again, there's links to tell you all what that means. But yeah, really excited for our partnerships to continue.
And they will, because your CEO, right? CEO, President Jared Lyons is he is a VFW member, and I think his post is down in Florida somewhere.
Yes.
But so he always has this open invite to come speak at our national convention. And since that just got done, we don't want to dive too far into the VFW national convention. We'll do that next week, right, Brittany?
Yes.
Yes. You have a little bit of a preview for us in just a moment, but
a little bit.
Kind of wanted to get your take, how he did the interactions that you had at National Convention between SVA and all the delegates that came in from around the world for our National Convention in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, so not only were Jared and I in Ohio, but we actually had a booth. Mm-hmm. So John, who is a VFW member, post member actually, and very active up northeast, and as SVA chapter member of the past, now on staff, he got to man our booth and reach out to those commanders he saw walking by and be like, hey, did you know SVA and VFW do this, mm-hmm. like the scholarship and the grant and the fellowship and just legislation going forward with each other. And he said he had some great conversations. At SVA, we've increased our strategic plan here in the last few years. And we're going to be looking at state policy.
Oh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
State policy and education and veterans and how all that works together. And so we have some roundtables coming up in a few states, which I reached out to Kristina and she gave me some of those legislative chair member names that we'll be reaching out to make sure they're coordinating.
Little coordination there. Good job. Good on you.
Yeah, we've seen Jamie Singleton, who was a fellow a few years ago. He really gained a strong connection with the West Virginia VFW delegation, and they literally would pull up chairs for him at tables to ensure that student veterans had a voice in their capital.
Oh, that's awesome. Grassroots efforts over the last few years, and Brittany, I know that you can attest to it because Pat has been a big part of that. Mm-hmm. It's really where the rubber meets the road. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think a lot of veterans will call in and we need to change Congress. Okay, right. That's a aircraft carrier to try and move. But you can move that little destroyer that you have over there in whatever state you are, and make a big difference for you and the veterans that live in your community.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we try to instill in our volunteers, whether it's our National Legislative Committee or with our student veteran fellows, is how much power the individual has. Mm-hmm. As a voter, as a constituent. I mean, our teams here in Washington, D.C. can do a lot, but we can't do it all. And legislators really do care what their voters think. Mm. So by educating and informing veterans wherever they may live, they're helping to push some of these priorities and making them a reality. So when people call in and say, this needs to change, that needs to change, we try to empower them, give them resources so that they can help be part of the change. And our fellows, I think, are just some of the best examples to where they come in and they may not know the process on the Hill, but by the time they leave, they've spoken one-on-one with their legislators. Yeah. And they have that confidence and understand, whether they get into policy work or not, how important their voice is as an individual.
Right. Mm-hmm. Brittany, so there's a lot of grassroots stuff that takes place up there in Rhode Island. I know that. Small community, but you belong to a post that's very active. On the legislative side, do you see a lot of that there at the State House?
So we have some members. I would say it's more so from my perspective. So full disclosure, I just joined this post not too long ago. Mm-hmm. I've known about it for years and the great things they do, but I'm essentially just such a noob to it. So, but they are very active, and we have one of our members is, I don't know if he is still, but he definitely was one of the members of the VFW Legislative Committee, which if anyone's interested in that, we've spoken about it on other podcasts. We'd probably speak about it again in the future. But so what they are, they're individual VFW members who participate in federal legislative advocacy. But then when they're not doing that, which they do twice a year during the fly-ins, when they're not doing that, they're at home in their home states, and they're looking at veteran legislation that is happening, at home. And so we luckily have one of those individuals at our post, and he is always on it. And so he's been very, very instrumental in, for instance, getting one of the recent claim shark bill passed in Rhode Island. Right. Mm-hmm. So we've been at the our post has sort of been at the forefront of that, or was at the forefront. It was recently just passed within the past month or two. Mm-hmm. And so, now there's a law in Rhode Island that is protecting veterans from claim sharks, which is awesome.
Yeah,
So
totally awesome.
And we're in good company with other states around the country, VFW members advocating for protection. So
I would say that's
it really
another
matters.
thing that, real big is like Texas, for instance, right? Mitch Fuller, who was the legislative chair of this past year,
Right.
Totally active. That guy's constantly, and it was great because we were leveraging technology, not to give it away, but we were leveraging technology parade deck, which we had on Saturday and Sunday, where we were able to bring some people out. And so like we had 30-minute like time where people were able to speak on stage, and then like 5 to 10 minutes on the side stage. Jared got up there, right? Jared had time to get up there or no?
So we were unable to participate this year.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Definitely something
Just
that
missed.
we're going to build into our travels for next year.
Thank you. And I think that's important because streaming out the stuff that you see in the business sessions, you only got a little bit of time, right? It's real tight in order to speak. And, he always gets up there. He says some very kind words. It's always, really motivating. But to hear a little bit more of his thoughts, hear more of your thoughts, the other fellows, having that opportunity there on the parade deck stage, I think would be really phenomenal. So if that's an opportunity to do that. And the other thing, too, is if you can work it out where you could be a delegate of your post, not only going there in the capacity of your post as a delegate, but also if you're an SVA fellow or you happen to be part of a chapter and you get to be part of these different meetings. We have the legislative committee meeting where you can sit down. If let's just say that you didn't get chosen for the fellowship, right? Sorry. But you didn't get chosen. But you can go to the National Convention, NatCon, but you can also go to the VFW's National Convention, sit in on the legislative committee meeting that they have there and really hear the resolutions which drive all the advocacy efforts we do here in Washington, D.C. So it's a little bit of a preview. I think I'm going to give it back over to you, Brittany, if you have more to add. Was there more to add?
Well, yeah, I mean, you covered Parade Deck. So Parade Deck is an online streaming platform. They have a lot of influencers. I think it's a crazy amount of people that their audience is huge. But we had them this is their first year at convention. So if you want to see the replay of any of that content, they hosted many speakers up there and talking about topics all over the board, from disaster relief to POW, MIA recovery missions. So the DPAA. So the DPAA director was on stage talking about the DPAA mission. We had discussion about veteran suicide. There's all sorts of amazing content that you can watch at vfw.paradedeck.com if you want to check that out. And then we also had some other really great sessions at convention this year. Another highlight was the Afghanistan War Commission. And we will dive into that in the next podcast, but it was really wonderful. They had a great 2-hour session that was pretty impactful from what I understand. I was in there for part of it and did tell my story, and I know that several other staff members did as well. And then just a lot of other VFW members who were at convention had an opportunity to share their experiences in Afghanistan. So it was a pretty awesome convention, and we're excited to cover some of the nuances of it. We had a lot of good debates about what our members care about, what they want us to look at, what they want Kristina's team to advocate on for legislation for the coming year. So I was blown away, just as I am every year, at the massive knowledge that our members bring to the table with every year to convention. And they come ready to do business.
Oh, sure.
And I am thrilled to be able to discuss some of those items on the next podcast.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be great. I'm thinking like the subtitle should be The Airing of Grievances, because
maybe that
there's a little bit of that went on.
There was some drama.
Well,
it was also a historic moment. Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was historic.
It was historic.
The very first woman to be elected the VFW Commander-in-Chief, Carol Whitmore.
So
it was
Carol
a historic
awesome.
Convention.
Absolutely. I have gotten to know Carol over the years, having gone with her to the DPAA fact-finding mission in Vietnam and Thailand, and just really getting to know her. So we also went to Hawaii, went to the lab that's out there. So, but getting to know her thoughts, she understands that, yes, this is historic. You can't dispute that she's a woman. She's like 6+ feet tall, right? And she's got this long blonde flowing hair, and she knows that, right? She knows that. But she's like, I'm a veteran first, and I represent all veterans, and which I think that's a real shot in the arm for everybody.
I've always considered her a veteran, and just somebody that I'm very proud of, and I've been really lucky to work with. But in the moment when she was elected, I did get choked up.
Did you?
Because then I was reminded that this is historic and important.
Sure.
And it's just, even if we interact just as veterans, as a group, just seeing her up on stage, I was just very quickly reminded, wait, hold on. This is a huge deal. I'm so happy and so proud.
Yeah.
And
you weren't alone. There was a whole row of veterans who are women that were sitting up there. In the front row, they were like ready to jump up as soon as that happened.
Definitely would have been in the front.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool moment. Great for our organization to just show that inclusion of all of our, another step forward as we reflect the greater community that we're all coming from, right? The military that we know, that we've come to love and enjoy, or at least our experience in the military, and yeah, that was really great. So we'll catch up more on that.
Yes.
But I think we have come to the end.
Yes.
And
pivot.
we've gone through the list. Have we gone through the list, Kristina?
We are at good of the order.
And we are at the good of the order. So I'm going to go. Let's see. I'm going to go with Tammy first. Tammy, what is your good of the order?
So you kind of took my original good of the order.
Oh, I did?
We were talking about Jared at the convention.
We could talk a little bit more about what he said.
I just want to say SVA has learned a lot from VFW's conventions. We saw the presence of VA at your convention a few years ago after PACT Act was put into law. And we saw how it would be possible to do like the front to the back end of a claims clinic. And we took your example and we ran with it at our next NatCon in Tennessee. Yeah. And we had over 350 veterans served in just our 2.5 days.
Wow.
And there were veterans from the Tennessee community coming. They were employees of the hotel coming down.
Because they heard about it. Yeah.
So so we've done it every year since. Colorado, again, they had the whole corner of our exhibit hall. We're looking forward to doing it again. And it all just came from seeing what you guys do at your convention.
Wow, that's crazy. And I guess Phoenix would have been our first one that we did that.
Yeah.
We had a full claims clinic. Yeah.
Dry and hot Phoenix.
Yeah. Oh, man. It was hot.
Oh, wow.
It was so hot. Okay. Jennifer, what do you have for us for your good of the order?
Yeah, so I guess my good of the order, I kind of hinted to it earlier. So since completing the fellowship and very recently, as of this week, I now have a position in a veteran serving organization working on policy with Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America.
Very good.
So,
very good.
It only took me 3 years, not quite 7, but I feel like this is definitely. I mean, I have the fellowship to thank. I have interacting with Kristina and Joy and just learning what's possible in the policy space, and I'm just really excited to be a small part.
Well, that's fantastic. And IAVA is an organization that we've partnered with, have been and many pieces of legislation, been in coalitions with. So it's great. We've had them speak here at our press conferences in the lobby and over there across the street, at whether it be for the Afghan Adjustment Act or it would be for the GWAT Memorial or whatnot. It's always great, especially for me being an Afghanistan War veteran and Brittany as well. Like that means a lot to have that kind of partnership and stay connected with that level of veteran, our generation, if you will.
Yeah, and I'll say they're really good about sharing veteran stories. I think that's what really spoke to me about the organization. So for those who maybe aren't quite or are on the fence about whether or not the VFW SVA Fellowship is right for them, if you are a GWAT veteran, check out the IAVA Calvary. Kind of gives you a little taste of what the fellowship could be, and then from there, that might be the motivation you need to apply.
Sure. And there's nothing saying you can't belong to both.
Exactly.
True.
At the very least, sign up
All
for
three.
right, or all three mailing
All
list,
three,
Action
yes.
Corps. You can be part of that. So, okay, Kristina.
Guilty.
Good on you. Good on you. All right, Kristina, what do you got for your good of the order?
Yeah, I mean, the next thing that's coming up for the National Legislative Service is our fall legislative conference. So it's September 8, 9, 10. We've expanded our National Legislative Committee so that we have every district covered in the United States. So we've got about 25 more Leg Committee members all coming to DC. We've got a full day of training and then 2 full days on the Hill. And we will try to get to every single congressional office, push our priorities. So it's sort of our smaller conference, and then March will be our big conference.
Yeah, that's part of our midwinter. And actually, it's 2 things, right? So you kind of brush on it a moment, but yeah, 25 more committee members coming in, but the training, the full day of training. Now, we've had training before at our fall legislative meeting, but I think you guys have really decided to step it up, right?
We have, and a lot of it has come from committee members, even some of our fellows wanting more information, more sort of classroom style education on some of the basics on how to research and read legislation, how to talk about legislation, how to tell stories in those meetings with their members of Congress. And so this is kind of us trying to deliver on that. We would do a couple of briefings and give some overviews, but we're going to go and do some deep dives and try to answer all their questions so that they feel really confident going into their meetings on those other 2 days.
I think it's important. Anybody that we bring into our area here, whether because we do a phenomenal job when it comes to our National Veterans Service, their biannual training they do it twice a year, and they're doing 80 hours worth of training when the requirement for VA accreditation is 40. And so that amount of time that they do in the testing and the amount of work that our staff put in to make sure that our VA accredited claims representatives are the best they can be to help veterans for free, I think is phenomenal. So when it comes to advocacy, it's got to be up there. And I'm so glad to see you guys stepping it up.
A lot of that training is being developed to mimic some of that service officer training, just some of the formatting. Joe Grassi and Gabby Cubini, are part of that organizing our fellowship. So Gabby worked for NVS for a long time. Joe was a service officer, went through that training. Right. So they're kind of putting together their expertise to deliver like a full day of training, briefings, a lot of information. And then when the volunteers leave between September and March, they're going to get additional Zoom training, videos, and other content so that they can kind of even prepare again for March.
Excellent. Yeah. And you know what, Brittany, I'm thinking that we need to have Gabby and Joe on here sometime.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I would love
we need
that.
to have Joe back on. He's hilarious, by the way. And Gabby, who is a hoot, she is just full of energy.
High energy. Just really excited to be
No
with
wonder
the team.
that she leads grassroots efforts. She's the right person for it. So,
yes.
Going over to you, Brittany, your good of the order.
My good of the order. So I'm going to continue. I have a lot of ideas, but I'm going to continue on this string of using your voice as a veteran. So, this has like been a through line this whole podcast so far today. So, circling back to the important work that the Afghanistan War Commission is doing, it's not common that you get to speak and tell your story directly to this panel, like I was able to, and several others were able to do at our convention last week. But if you are an Afghanistan veteran, it is so important that you share your story, because this panel wants to know what your experience was. It is really important as they do their work to get a picture of what happened in Afghanistan and how we can avoid those sorts of outcomes again going forward. Right. So if you're an Afghanistan veteran, call to action. If you are comfortable with it, head to afghanistanwarcommission.senate.gov. And from there, you can navigate and you can share your story with the Afghanistan War Commission as they do their work. It's important, and so if you feel compelled, please visit that website so that your voice can be heard.
Excellent.
That's mine.
Yeah, I love that. I had a chance to speak there too, and just kind of let go of some of those things I've been carrying around with me for a long time. You know what I mean?
Same.
It was a complicated war. It was a long war. It was 20 years. And so there's a lot to get off your chest there if you're a veteran and you served, and especially if you're maybe, at all levels, it doesn't matter, tactical, operational, strategic. There is different things that were put in place that were just like, man, what are we doing here? Hey, look, we got Osama bin Laden, glad for it. And it just went on a lot longer, in Rob's opinion. And I think a lot of veterans' opinions, because they definitely shared it there in the room. So that's going to be something that'll be streamed as they start getting together all these different things. The interim report is out. And then I think the final report, I think they said they're going to share that next year, doing a similar forum of sorts at convention next year, VFW National Convention, the 127th in Reno, Nevada. So that'll be interesting. So go to the order. Do I have anything? Not really. I don't really have anything else. Got the studio. I guess what is probably important for me to let everyone know is that the VFW Washington office is going to go through some renovations. And so, yeah. And so very shortly, we have a couple more episodes we're going to do, a few more episodes actually, where we got a special guest, which Brittany and I have been really working with to try and bring this person on. So don't want to give that away. And we're going to talk about a real good recap of the convention. There was a lot of, high drama that was going on there. But we're going to have to close down the building. Now, the place that they have set up for us is going to have it's going to have a meeting space. So Kristina and her team, and Mike and his team, and Ryan with the rest of us directors are all going to be able to meet. But they assure me that it will be large enough for me to hold the podcast. So the walls may not be 1960s brown like we got going on right now, but it will be the same group, cast of characters, so to speak. Yeah. And as we continue to expand this, so this is our first one with bringing SVA on, and now and IAVA. Look at that, kind of new, kind of cool. But we're looking forward to that, and Brittany and I are excited to continue on. Yes. So that's it. That's the show. You guys got anything else to add?
I just want to say, if you are close to an SVA chapter, help support them coming to NatCon and Washington Week, because you're driving and you're putting effort into that next generation of VFW members one way or another, either Class A members or maybe auxiliary members.
That's right. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would say if you're a veteran considering your program or what school you're going to select, check out the SVA chapter first. It's a lifeline. It's something that, it's a place that you can go that could make the difference between graduation success or maybe just not feeling like you belong. So, and then schools, support your SVA chapter.
All right.
It's a recruiting tool.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just lastly, the VFW SVA Fellowship is open.
Yep.
So please encourage students to apply. You can check out the VFW website or the SVA website. You'll easily find it there. Only got a few more weeks to apply, so please send your students our way. It'll be a great experience for them.
Yes.
Excellent. And Brittany?
Applications close September 12th, so be sure to get them in.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you all being here in the studio with me for another great podcast. And for you out there listening, watching, we ask that you continue to subscribe, follow us on social media, on all streaming platforms, and on YouTube. You can put it right on your smart TV in your house and watch these episodes and go back and watch some of the other ones. Great content. So from Washington, D.C., I'm Rob Couture, reminding you when it comes to the VFW, we are still serving. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Still Serving, the VFW podcast. To get the latest news and information from the veterans of foreign wars, make sure to follow, and subscribe to us on social media at VFW HQ, on Facebook at VFW Fans, or visit our website at vfw.org.